here at GAT Show, and we had a special guest this weekend, flying in from Prince George, British Columbia. We've got Sheldon Clare, National President of the NFA.
Glad to be here, Doug. Real pleasure.
Thank you for coming out. You've been working the NFA booth on the firing line all day.
Painting targets and pulling triggers and getting people happy.
Getting in the mix of it. These guys have run a great booth today, getting a lot of great feedback. They've got a ton of really cool firearms. Now shooting has stopped. The line's clear, and we can actually hear ourselves think. So we thought we'd have a little chat and talk about, Canadian firearms rights in Canada. So lots going on these days.
There really is a lot going on, Doug. You've probably heard about Bill C-71. That's a real concern for a lot of us now. The NFA has been pretty active this spring. We spent a couple of weeks doing some hardcore meetings with MPs and senators to talk about strategy and tactics to slow down and delay Bill C-71. We're very optimistic about our efforts there. And we've been very strong in emphasizing that anybody who supports this bill is going to pay for it at the ballot box in the next federal election. We're, of course, expecting Mr. Trudeau to examine his choices. He could prorogue Parliament in the fall. He could call a snap election. He has some options there. And we're trying to make sure that we're ready with good pro-gun candidates being selected in nomination ridings, mainly conservative ones, but others as well. And we've been engaging our activists around the country. We've also been doing some work with the United Nations. I was at the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons just over a month ago in New York City.
No gun control laws can prevent bad behavior, nor have laws ever stopped a determined person from carrying out evil deeds. It is a sad fact that many acts of terror are perpetuated and supported by governments, often against their own people, a problem which the UN has often been unable or unwilling to address.
Didn't go over very well with some of the gun-grabbing genocide pro-countries out there that are just trying to disarm their people and control them.
For those not in the know, can you give us a quick synopsis on what the UN Small Arms Treaty is all about?
Well, there's a number of different things at the UN that you need to be concerned about. There's the International Tracing Instrument, which is part of the Program of Action on Small Arms and Light Weapons. They have the Model Small Arms Law that they promote countries to adopt. And there are a number of things. Now, some of the intents of all of this is, we want world peace and, unicorns and rainbows and Skittles for everyone. But the reality is that there are a lot of arms trade countries out there that are, funneling large shipments. And it's really governments that are causing the problems. But they're trying to put a lot of blame on civilians. A big talk at the Program of Action this time was about 3D printed guns. This is nonsense. This is a distraction this is a distraction from things that they really should be working on, like stopping cutthroat murderers from killing their own people, which is something I addressed in my presentation. There's also the Arms Trade Treaty, which has been underway for a while. The United States has not signed on to the Arms Trade Treaty, which effectively renders a lot of it useless, but it's useless anyway because of the spinning of wheels around it. A disappointing thing at the Program of Action, which was before, was the fact that the old rule about consensus seems to have been thrown out the window because they require consensus, like everybody has to agree, which effectively gives everybody a veto. And that's the way the UN works. But the chair of the conference made it very clear that he had a bias towards including ammunition into the Arms Trade Treaty. So there was a big push to get ammunition documented and included. People were arguing, if you can believe this, for marking ammunition individually so that each cartridge could be identified as to where it came from and who bought it and sold it and all the rest of it. It's crazy. You can't do it.
I can't even imagine trying to implement that, regulate that, and what it would do to the cost of ammunition. It would be insane. It would ruin entire sport shooting industries.
Well, it would ruin everything for civilian ownership of firearms. It's outrageously, prohibitively costly. Stupid. We heard a lot of talk about that. The World Forum on the Future of Shooting Activities, of which the NFA is part of. They were there. They made a very strong speech. A number of other firearms organizations worldwide were represented as well. The only other pro-gun organization which spoke at the conference was NFA. We're a standalone NGO at the UN under ECOSOC, and we spoke up, said our piece. It was blunt, and then boom. And I mean, even some of the anti-gun groups there that were part of civil society liked the message we had about go after governments that are committing genocides against their own people. We got some good ground from that, from people who are talking about banning guns and ammunition. They like that aspect of our message.
You say civil society. Who is that, or who's behind
Okay,
that?
well, civil society is the NGOs,
Okay.
the collective NGOs, either pro-gun or anti-gun,
Okay.
largely viewed as being anti-gun, but all the pro-gun groups are part of civil society. That's the collective that gets the time to speak. So you see us speaking under civil society and sharing time and having to negotiate for time to speak. And it's funny because you build up relationships with people and you try to work in a reasonable diplomatic way and share time, and they're mainly pretty good to deal with about sharing time. Our messages are completely contradictory, as you can imagine. It's just, you know, not even cats and dogs. It's more like rocks and cucumbers. It's not the same, right? It's not mixable, but you try to build a respectful working relationship so that people can do the business that they're there to do, right? And that's working fairly well.
Before we stop talking about the UN, we talk about marking ammunition. What's going on with the UN firearms marking scheme? Is that still in play?
Yes, that is. That's still in play. There's more and more pressure for it. I mean, I watched the Canadian government's delegation this time at the Program of Action, and they were more concerned about gender-neutral language than engaging in most of anything. They're all in favor of everything that's going on. Our current government is, and they really were not as present as they have been under the previous government, under the Harper Conservatives, who were very well engaged in what was going on and took very strong stance against a lot of what was going on. It's quite a different regime now.
Certainly.
And I'm off to Japan next week for the arms trade treaty talks, which is another pot of fish. Japan volunteered to host arms trade treaty talks. They would normally be held at a UN office either in Geneva or in Manhattan, New York, maybe Austria, but Japan insisted on hosting. I'm not really sure what the reason for that is, but it'll be another regime of listening to a whole bunch of people wanting to get our stuff and then standing up and speaking for a few minutes about why that's unreasonable and why it shouldn't happen. But if we weren't there, who would be speaking up?
Certainly.
And that's a big thing for us.
And looping back to the current Canadian government, as we all know, there's been some incidents and a lot of doom and gloom in the news about Canadian firearms ownership. And talk about handgun bans and that sort of thing.
Yep.
Have you had any sort of consultation with the Liberal government in light of their chatter right now?
We haven't just met with Conservative members of Parliament. We have met with a few Liberals and made our concerns known. They've been listening to us. They've made it clear where they don't agree.
Okay.
And they're blunt about that. I respect that. But one of the things I like to remind them of is the last time anybody mentioned a handgun ban, and I think his name was Paul Martin, they really didn't do well in the next election, and that was a significant reason why. Because I think people need to understand that people who own and enjoy firearms and hunting and all the rest of that aren't just conservatives. They are also people from the left, people from the center, and it's a unifying aspect. It's all walks of life. And what they do when they threaten that aspect is they get people out to vote against it. And that's what Canadians tend to do. So we're going to see, I think, a surge in support for the Conservatives out of this handgun ban stuff. And we're certainly going to work to encourage that.
Do you see a little bit of a chasm between candidates or MPs that are in urban and rural ridings when it comes to this?
There certainly is some concern on close ridings. Like we've been analyzing the percentages, and we're looking at between 20 to 25 ridings that we think we can swing, based on the results from last time, based on the sentiments, based on where people are when people start talking about banning firearms. When that starts happening, we think we can rock it. And we've been very supportive of pro-firearms candidates, particularly Conservatives, trying to get them nominated and get them support across the country. And we've done a number of initiatives in that way. I don't want to talk too much about all of that, but it's real. It's the round-the-ground work that our people locally are doing every day, and that we're doing as a leadership of the National Firearms Association. And like I say, our directors were volunteers. I've got a day job. I teach at a community college. I'm not doing this on paid time. This is my, I've got vacation time. I've got professional development. Work supports a lot of my efforts, even though some of my people at work or my superiors don't really agree with some of the things I'm doing. But they've been pretty good about recognizing the value of having someone who's active and engaged at an international and national level. Being someone who's there providing a good basis for people to learn.
Speaking of learning, we see a lot of questions online just, because we're, in that social media world.
Yep.
Guys, I live in Toronto, handgun ban, there's a handgun ban.
Yep.
I'm going to lose my handguns. We've got John Tory saying, gun owners, maybe you're not that welcome here.
I've corresponded with John Tory, and John Tory doesn't write back.
I get it, I get it. So maybe you can comment on, can an urban district or municipality actually ban firearms ownership? Or
No, they have no.
Matter?
It's a federal matter in Canada. Municipalities are a creation of the province. All the municipalities are a creation of the province. So what you're seeing now is a bit of a competition between Premier Ford and Mayor Tory over this. Mayor Tory has a political agenda he's pushing. That's his game. He's been pushing it for a while. It's the same old tune. It's the same old Tory. He's got an election coming up. He thinks this is something that he can gain some votes on. I think he's going to be surprised about that. I think that there are a lot of firearms owners in the GTO, the Greater Toronto area, who are going to get out and vote, who may not have voted last time, or have got some hope there that they can go after and maybe develop a little faith in the electoral process, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. And maybe for our viewers, can you maybe explain to us what exactly the NFA is an organization and how maybe our viewers could support the NFA, get involved?
Sure.
Obviously you guys are doing great things both domestically and internationally, so how can guys learn more about the NFA and get behind it?
Well, we operate a closed group Facebook group, and we have our main Facebook page. We also have a website which is undergoing some major revisions. You can look forward to some big changes on our website coming soon. Our office staff is second to none. We offer bilingual service at our office. We've got a great team there. I'm always happy to go to our national office because I like to see it. I like to see the happy office. We've got good people doing good work. Our board of directors is second to none. Dedicated, energetic, enthusiastic, knowledgeable. I'm so glad that I'm part of this team, and I'm really honored that they have selected me again this year to be their president. And it's all at nfa.ca is where you can find information about us, or you can go to Facebook, National Firearms Association official site, or National Firearms Association for our Facebook page. Okay. And we try to get the message out there. We encourage people to help spread our message. We've got some good videos out there on YouTube that are pretty punchy. You can see a couple of my presentations at the UN out there, and I think you'll find that they're pretty blunt. Yep. But that's the way I roll. I believe in evidence-based research, which is, I've heard some members of government say that they support that, but I haven't seen any evidence that they're doing that.
Maybe we won't go there right now.
But we've got very good research in Canada that 50 years of gun control in this country have been about absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with public safety. It's been all about currying public favor for short-term goals. That's all it is. And we're being made to suffer because of that for absolutely no good reason. So we think it's time to start rolling things back in a big way. No more incrementalism, no more taking the sand to make a beach. Here's a grain, here's a grain, here's a grain. In 100,000 years you're going to have a beach. No, let's get the dump trucks and the scoops going and get this moved.
I agree. And even on an individual or a range level basis, NFA has actually provided the insurance for this GAT Show event.
That's right.
Which is awesome. And I'm an NFA member. I'm actually a member of all three organizations. I think that's important. Guys, I mean, we're talking $100 for all three to, support firearm rights in Canada. It's important. Yeah. And one of the reasons I like NFA is they have a great insurance package as well that you get that you can top up with your membership. And
absolutely,
I have that insurance.
Yeah, our insurance is primary insurance. It's I think the best stuff going. There's a lot of talk about whose insurance is better and all of that. our primary liability insurance, I think, is second to none. We're underwritten by Hub Barton. That's one of the largest insurance underwriters in Canada, and it's a good package.
Excellent.
So thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. And thanks to CodeOfArms for all you guys have been doing to help promote and operate this great event here at GAT. I'm really enjoying it. I've had a great time here this weekend. And I encourage everybody who's listening to this to make sure they get out to the next day of shooting and fun at the range. And when they run this again next year, which I know they will, make sure you come out and support Silverdale. It's one of our best clubs. It's got great leadership, great people here. And I'll tell you, I'm so impressed with this range facility and everything I've seen this weekend. And I met a lot of really great people. Doug, thank you.
Thank you, Sheldon. And so you don't miss out, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube.com. This is Code of Arms.